this computer.
Okay, well, first I want to welcome everybody for coming to the call tonight. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. As we all know, our lives all get really crazy. So I appreciate all of you that tuned in to give us 30 minutes of your time tonight. And I guess first for those, because I don't know some of the people on this call, I'm Julia Hoskins, and I'm a RN by trade. Most of you probably know Michala Petersen, a pharmacist, and then Katie Schmidt, a school teacher. That's the three of us that are going to be visiting with you a little bit tonight. So I'm going to start off with just a really fun fact, because we're going to talk to you tonight about the link between sugar and disease. So this I didn't know until just not that long ago, but by the time an average child turns 8 years old, they've consumed more sugar than a human being did in their lifetime just a century ago. And I don't know about you, but that blows my mind. That's just incredible. And just, you know, a year and a half ago, myself, I didn't even understand what sugar did in your immune system and how it created havoc with our immune system. So I have grown and learned a ton in the last year and a half. I'm a mom, a wife, a mom of 4 girls, and my mother baked like no other baker there ever was, and I loved to bake, and there was never a time before the last year and a half that I didn't have something sweet, whether it's cookies, cupcakes, whatever on my counter. Anybody could walk into my house and there was always something sweet on the counter to grab and curb that craving. But now, about the only time that I ever bake is when we're having company for supper or holidays. And as we all know, we all think we got to have something sweet to eat on holidays, which I don't know, I just can't give that part quite up yet. But fortunately, I was introduced to a whole food concentrate, nutritional concentrate by a friend that completely changed my taste and my cravings for sweets in a way that I never thought was possible. And so now, like I said, I don't bake near as much. So tonight, we're going to dive a little bit further into the sugar and how it affects our immune system and also where it hides. So I will turn it over to Michala, I believe, at this point.
That's awesome. Thank you, Julia. So why do we care about sugar? Why are we on this Zoom call devoting an entire Zoom call to sugar? Well, even just a teaspoon or 2 of sugar can deplete the immune system by up to 50% for 4 to 6 hours. So I don't know about you, but as a mom of 4, that is staggering to me, because think about it. When do our kids get sick? When do we get sick? I like to call it the random acts of barfness, because it's always after a holiday or Halloween or, you know, Valentine's Day or whenever it is. And our kids are super sugared up and we expect them to behave perfectly. And then all of a sudden we get sick. So let's talk about the immune system for a little bit. So a lot of times, especially in the winter, in the dead of winter in Nebraska, we aren't getting a ton of produce. And produce is what latches on to those little toxins that are in our body and allows us to become thirsty, and then those toxins are depleted. So in the winter, if we're not getting a lot of produce, we're building up with toxins, right? And so the cold and flu season is rampant, probably the worst we've seen in years. I don't know, that's not a tech, I don't know that for sure, but I think it's pretty bad, just my opinion. And so, we want to take care of our immune system. And one of the ways that we can do that is just by being aware of where sugar hides, what it does to us. And there are some really easy sugar substitutes that we can use. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later. So the other thing is, and a place that's near and dear to my heart is cancer patients. And the statistics for cancer is maddening to me, honestly, that 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women will get cancer in their lifetime. And think about it. I know I'm probably, not the youngest on this call by far, But when I was a kid, there were no children's hospitals. There were no pediatric oncology clinics. And now it's commonplace. And so, in my opinion, we have to examine, what we are doing that could impact that. And sugar is a really simple way to take control of our health. So let's dive a little bit further into cancer. We have a Facebook page called Striding Through Cancer, and we talk about a lot of these things, but sugar is one of them. And sugar feeds cancer. That's what cancer cells feed on. So if you think about it, I'm sure we could raise hands. How many of you on this line have been impacted by cancer in some way, shape, or form? Everyone, pretty much, right? And so, if sugar doesn't feed cancer, then why, when we go in for a PET scan to be diagnosed with cancer, do they restrict carbohydrates for 24 to 48 hours and then inject us with a radioactive glucose, and the cancer cells gobble up that glucose and then it glows red on the screen? So we've got to be commonsensical, in my opinion, about this. If that is a word, it sounded smart, didn't it? Just keeping it real here. Anyway, we've got to use common sense when it comes to this stuff, because we can control that. So, okay. And then the third thing is sugar makes the body acidic. And I don't know if that's a new term for you, or if you're used to that term, but cancer and disease does not thrive in an alkaline environment. And the two things that make your body alkaline are plants or produce and pure water. So sugar or anything processed makes the body more acidic, and therefore a prime breeding ground for cancer or disease or anything that doesn't serve our body. So the pH of a sugar, when you consume sugar, it makes the blood 10 times more acidic than the blood. The sugar makes you way more acidic, 10 times more acidic. So that is pretty staggering to me. So another thing that is staggering is where sugar hides, and then all the different names for high fructose corn syrup. And so just a little snippet about that, and then Katie's going to tell us all about high fructose corn syrup. But Dr. Sears is a world-renowned pediatrician. He's written over 40 books, and I received a health coach certification through his institute. And one of the things that we talk about is like, well, how do you eat clean? Where do I start? And one of the ways to start is by eliminating the foolish 5. And one of the foolish 5 things that you could eliminate is high fructose corn syrup. There's also dyes that you can eliminate. There's trans fat or hydrogenated oils. There is aspartame, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So if you eliminate those foolish 5 things, you are eating 90% clean already. So Katie, tell us a little more about high fructose corn syrup, will ya?
Well, I have learned a lot about this that I didn't know either, like Julia said, and I'm still learning. It's crazy what we think is the norm, and we see this high fructose corn syrup, and it's just snuck in all these different foods that we think are good for us. And they have them snuck in by changing the name. Most of you, you may know about high fructose corn syrup, but then they try to say, okay, like dextrose, the glucose, the fructose, those words that are sugar words too. The agave syrup is worse than regular sugar, I am finding, and it's amazing all these things that you think are good for you that they're hidden in. Things like your yogurt. Who thinks yogurt's healthy? I've always thought yogurt was one of the healthiest things, and it has the sneaky sugars hiding in there, along with cereals. Applesauce was one that surprised me. You think that applesauce doesn't have, I'm not saying all these, I guess, have the high fructose corn syrup, but they're all hiding the sugars and things that we don't necessarily think that would have sugar in them. Applesauce does. The no sugar added foods, they say that on the front. You think that they don't have sugar, then that you think they're good for you, or they're not as bad, and they are hiding the sugars. They use a lot of the juice from concentrate. That is the sweetener for those no sugar added foods. Things like your fruit snacks, you think that are good for your kids that you're giving to them. Granola bars, who thinks you'll grab a Special K bar? You're thinking it's good for you. Well, that's packed with sugar. Your coffee drinks. How many people nowadays are going through Starbucks or whatever on your way to work? Yikes. I used to have coffee, like the coffee, my way of having coffee was loaded with sugar. So I've learned a lot about that. Sauces was a big one that surprised me. Your barbecue sauces, your ketchup, there's sugar hiding in those. Your juices, of course, with your kids. Sports drinks. Oh my gosh, like the Gatorade. I've always thought it was healthy for you. The kids assume that it's good for you. And they see the commercials with the athletes drinking the sports drinks. Not good. So a lot of these packaged foods contain a lot of the sugars that we're eating. And like Michala said, is the most effective way to avoid these sugars or reducing your sugar intake is by eating the whole foods, the unprocessed foods. So I don't know if you want me to go into some of our things that I've measured out to see.
Yeah, let's do the demo. I think that's going to be eye-opening. Do you want to tell how to read the label, or you want me to?
Yeah, I can go ahead and tell how to read the label. So when you're looking at a label, this is another thing I've learned, is to calculate how many teaspoons of sugar are in a food. You are going to look at the grams of sugar and divide that by 4 is how you find that out. So I'm sure here in the United States, a lot of us don't understand, grams necessarily the size to our teaspoons. So that's, you divide it by 4. So I found a few things. The first thing, squirt. Not maybe the one that you think is the worst. I mean, I never thought it was maybe the worst soda, but it has 38 grams of sugar, and I have it measured out here. So 38 grams is 9.5 teaspoons of sugar. Here's the sugar. Here's the soda.
Oh.
Yikes. So who's going to eat this? Just like that. Ugh. Yikes. Okay, then milk. Our kids are drinking this milk like Julia had talked about. Jamie Oliver and his food talk with the food revolution, bringing out that wheelbarrow of sugar on the stage that he's done, his food revolution. I don't know if anybody watched that when it was on a few years ago. The milk. So we'll start with, I have a picture here of your carton of milk from school that your kids are drinking. This is the 1% milk, and there are 16 grams of sugar, 4 teaspoons in that milk that your kids are drinking. Oh, it gets better. Chocolate milk. Here's the chocolate milk that I'm talking about. Sorry, I don't have the actual carton. I improvised here. And our chocolate milk has 29 grams, which is 7.25 teaspoons of sugar.
Yeah.
Our kids are drinking this every day. And a carton of milk is just at school. What are they drinking then at home too, And it gets even worse. There's the strawberry milk. And that contains 60 grams of sugar.
Oh,
that is 15 people, 15 teaspoons of sugar in this little carton of milk. That is a serving of milk. I cannot get over that.
If you ever see a Petersen kid drinking strawberry milk, you whack them.
Oh, my goodness. I just want to run into the lunchroom at school. I'm a teacher, like Julia said. I just want to run into the lunchroom and be like, what are we doing? All right. And of course, Grandma treated my kids to the charts. You guys, these little things are the size of a pea. So this is one serving size. They're little. The sugar in these is about the same size as the serving. That is 11 grams is 2 3/4 teaspoons of sugar. They're just basically eating pure sugar, just like those pixie sticks that they get. Pure sugar. I was so surprised. I didn't know, Julia.
Let's do some drinking now.
Talking about our breakfast thing, like our special K bars. This also has 9 grams of sugar. So divided by 4, we're looking at a little over 2 teaspoons of sugar in what we think is this healthy breakfast on the go, but it's not what I thought it was.
No.
No kidding.
I have 3 other examples I can throw in there if you'd like me to.
Awesome.
So I know most kids like Lucky Charms. So this is 1 serving of Lucky Charms, which is 3/4 of a cup. And in that is 10 grams of sugar. So that's 2.5 teaspoons of sugar in 3/4 of a cup of Lucky Charms. So can you see that? Kind of crazy.
It is crazy.
Not want to eat it.
I want to know who actually only eats 3/4 of a cup of Lucky Charms.
That doesn't even fill the bowl half full.
I know, none of the kids
My
do.
bowl anyway.
Yeah.
So then my husband pulls out this can of sliced peaches in heavy syrup, of course. And they have, for a half cup serving, there's 19 grams of sugar, which is just short of 5 teaspoons of sugar. So yeah, yuck.
And that has no fiber, right?
Right, no fiber whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at our trail mix, fruit and nut. You know, you think, oh, fruit and nut, that's a pretty good granola bar to eat. Well, not so much. 7 grams of sugar, which there you go again, 2 teaspoons of sugar. So, yeah. It's scary when you start going through your pantry.
It is. And, we're learning right along with everyone else. One thing to note is if you look at a food label and in order to get the net carbs, you subtract the grams of fiber from the grams of sugar. So, like the granola bar, for instance, it may have had a little bit of fiber in it or whatever. So you're looking for net carbs, but like our sugary drinks and the fruit and the sweet tarts for sure do not have any fiber. So, all of this is just about being more aware. And the point of this isn't to like naysay, you have to go on a water and, total vegan diet or anything like that. But we're going to talk a little bit about sugar substitutes now. And I don't want you to misunderstand this. By us saying all of these things that are so high in sugar, it 100% does not mean go for no sugar products, that are full of aspartame or sugar substitutes. Those wreak absolute havoc in the body. They degrade to formaldehyde. And I always tease that, growing up working in my dad's funeral home, it's never a good idea to pickle anything with a heartbeat. And so, we don't want to pickle ourselves from the inside out. And aspartame is linked to so many things, autoimmune disorders and cancer and just nasty things. But looking at where all this sugar is hiding, doesn't it kind of make you go, no wonder our kids are full of autoimmune disorders? You know what I mean? I mean, when we were kids, I didn't know a single person with a peanut allergy or a food allergy or, and we didn't have the boxed things that we have now, or we didn't, it wasn't commonplace for kids to drink pop when I grew up, it just wasn't. So anyway, there is a direct link between what we eat and disease. And so that's what we're here to educate. So sugar substitutes. We, at our house, this is sad, but I didn't even have any processed sugar. I didn't even have any white sugar. If I am going to use sugar, I use sugar in the raw. It's brown, it's crystals. It looks great on the top of protein muffins or whatever. So I use that. Dates are a great way to sweeten. Dates or raisins are a great way to sweeten things. And you can bake delicious dishes without, without all the added sugar. We use a complete protein that's a plant-based protein, and then I mix honey or dates or, whatever I have that is sweet, peanut butter, those types of things to add some protein to whatever you're making. And that protein along with the fiber, if you add some flaxseed or whatever to whatever you're baking, we know that willpower is a function of blood sugar. And so when we eat a sugary substance or eat a Pop-Tart and a Pepsi, like I did every day for pharmacy in pharmacy school, which just makes me cringe now. That's what I ate for breakfast, until I went on Weight Watchers and realized that one Pop-Tart was my total daily allotment of points. And I've never eaten a Pop-Tart after that. It did it in for me. But, those things are important, and we're human. We're going to splurge every now and then. That isn't what this is about. But our immune systems will totally thank us for ditching and switching to something that is healthier, and our bodies will too. So a little about my journey on this sugar thing is I used to have a huge sweet tooth. And what happened was we were introduced to a whole food nutritional concentrate about 3.5 years ago. And I didn't want to change anything. I'm kind of a stubborn person. And so I didn't want to share it with a soul. I didn't want to do anything with it. I just wanted to get more produce in my kids. And I knew they weren't consuming the 13 servings of produce that they needed every day. And we were consuming way too much sugar. And so I just wanted that gap to be bridged. And what happened was it changed our cravings. And so the Pepsi that I used to love started to taste like sugary syrup. And the same thing happened for my husband, who used to consume 5 Pepsis a day. And a Pepsi has 41 grams of sugar. So that's 10 1/4 teaspoons of sugar. So no wonder, he was always sick off and on throughout the whole calving season. He's stressed out, he's sugared up, and that was why. So anyway, it was the perfect catalyst for our family to change the cravings without us even realizing what was happening. And so, Katie, I know you have an awesome little story about a minor addiction that you used to have as well. And so this is like Sugar Addicts Anonymous here. We're moments of truth.
I too was addicted to the soda. I was addicted to the cola drinks, and I have 3 kids. All of my pregnancies, I craved the soda, and I knew the caffeine wasn't good. So I thought, okay, I'll get caffeine free. And here I had to get the case of Diet Coke, the Diet Coke caffeine free. And I thought, oh, I'm not doing as bad because I got the caffeine free, I'm pregnant. So, but finding out all the things with that, and now I don't drink pop. And when I think, oh, maybe I want to pop for some reason, I try it and it's not what you remember it being. And so I don't crave it. Like I haven't needed it. And it's been great. I don't have like the crash off of the caffeine either when I did have the regular. I have a major sweet tooth, and I have not craved that. And I know, like Michala has talked about too, when you eat more sugar, you crave more of what you're eating. And we've been implementing a lot more of the whole foods into our diet. And my kids are grabbing an orange, before bed, a banana before bed, instead of wanting ice cream before bed or cereal. And so it's fun to even see, like, you can't really have a kid, lie or, with this kind of thing. Like, they are choosing these things on their own. And my brother had cancer at a young age. And so it just scares me, and I want better for my own kids. And so learning about the concentrated fruits and vegetables in a capsule is definitely what intrigued me and what I could do better for my family. So
that's awesome. And I mean, talking about the health of our kids, that's been astronomical to me. I mean, as a family of 6, to go from being in the doctor's office or on antibiotics every other month to a single sick visit in the last 3 years is pretty dang incredible. So, and I know you guys have had this similar story with that too, and so has Julia. So
Yes.
Julia?
Yeah.
You want to close us out?
I can do that. Just want to thank everybody for joining in tonight and listening to what we had to share. We want to leave you with a gift. It's a website called healthylivingrevolution.com. It has all kinds of wonderful information on it. It has an amazing cookbook on there to start you on a healthier journey. It's got a home fitness series in it. It's got a program called Start Strong Kids, and then a ton of other things. So write it down, get on it, explore it. It's got a lot of good information. So
Yeah.
thanks again for joining us, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, you guys. Good night.
Thanks.